Natsu just regained an old power-up, but it is now stronger than it ever was before, and it could have room to grow even more. But with the latest chapter, chapter 198 of Fairy Tail Teacher's Quest, have many people confused on what exactly this power is. Is it temporary? Is it permanent? How does it work? And how exactly it's all possible in general. And I'm going to break that down today, as well as what this can mean for the future for Natsu in terms of future power-ups, or if this power will last with him till the end of the series. So we'll go and break it down with you right now. It is going to be a lot of fun to speculate on, but before we jump into this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. I've got a lot of more fairy tale / hero mashima based content that I'm getting built up in my backlog to upload between chapters later on towards the end of the year and going into the new year, so you guys can have a constant influx of fairy tale content in between all of these different chapters. And obviously, like this one, you will get videos based off certain developments in the manga whenever it is right. But yeah, that's really all I gotta say for that aspect. Let's just jump right into the actual video. So chapter 197 and chapter 198 especially gave us the reveal and return of Fire Dragon King mode Natsu. Now many of you would ask, wait, doesn't Natsu already use Fire Dragon King mode? And yes and no, it's not really a mode as I've gone back to see, it is more so just a type of attacks that he uses. It's a more upgraded version of his usual Fire Dragon Slayer moveset, but it is vastly inferior to what I dub as true Fire Dragon King mode for Natsu that he used against Seraph. And in these chapters, Natsu, after eating the flames of Beastia, the second in command of Fire and Flame, Ignia's dark guild of fire users that want to become dragons, his flames grew incredibly powerful, to the point where he has constant flames on his arms, legs, and his scarf even ignites in a constant flame. And we see that within these chapters, that the flames that he ate from Beastia are technically Igniel's actual flames, but to be more precise, they're Natsu's from his fight against Seraph, well, the first fight he had against Seraph in Alvarez, which is an insane bombshell. Now, let's get over why she had those flames. So, apparently, Beastia was present during Alvarez as a random soldier in Zeraph's army who witnessed the first fight against Zeraph and Natsu's Ignial flames, the dying flames of the Fire Dragon King that were strong enough to harm and potentially kill an immortal, Zeraph's own words that he recognized as he was fighting Natsu. But once Natsu was taken away as his flame was leaving him after the revelation that he was END, and Happy not wanting to have him die, obviously, the magic that Natsu had accumulated in his body for his Fire Dragon King mode dissipated and vanished from him, as it was a temporary power boost originally that he got from Igniel and he honed for a year, and after honing it he knew that it was going to be a very temporary thing to use in a fight, so he saved it for his fight against Zeraph, which is why he kind of had bandages all over his arms up until he fought Zeraph the first time. But what we got revealed is that Igniel's power obviously dissipated from Natsu, but according to Beastia, she was researching residual magic while she was in Alvarez, and so I guess in between Zeraph's forces going to fight against everyone in Ishgar and that whole war, she managed to take the residual magic of Igniel that was spread throughout the battlefield, take it and research it in Alvarez to the point where she managed to essentially condense it and absorb it within herself. But according to her, she could not use the full strength of that flame, but now that it returned to Natsu, he is capable of using that full strength. Now, I will tell you this. Very big coincidences and stuff in order to get to this point, and very big disappointment on Beastia as a character, because she's not interesting at all compared to what we were all being built up for. But that aside, it's very clear that she was used as a plot device just to get Natsu this power up back so he can, according to her, be a real threat against Ignia now, which is a big plus for Natsu since he was still technically pretty far behind against Ignia even at the start of this arc. But people are going to be asking about the residual magic, and actually this does actually make sense. There are things about residual magic that's shown throughout the series in just brief instances, but has never really been like a main full focus. You could feel it from certain people's attacks in specific areas, how some fights have went on. It's on, and even in some spin-offs like in Wendy Blue and Fairy Tail Blue Mistral, and I believe even in the Ice Trails from Grey. I haven't read the other ones, but I'm pretty sure there's a strong possibility it might be like that. And not only that, but also we saw with Acton Logia's arm, it had residual magic within that, even though it was a severed limb. That makes more sense because scattered magic going into the atmosphere is still a thing that can, at least with a bit of suspension of disbelief, make sense for Beastia to accumulate. As for why Beastia was unable to utilize Ignio's flames in the manner that Natsu is using them right now in this chapter, well, I take that to do with the fact that she is not either a blood relative or as magic compatible with Ignio's flames at that point, and thus, in a sense, a magic rejection of sort, incompatibility. She has powerful flames, but she can't utilize the real power of the flames since they weren't hers to begin with, and they were essentially stolen in a sense, never given or had any sorts of, I guess, conscious intent to her having the flame from the person that had that power originally. Again, suspension of disbelief and kind of loose logic for that aspect, but if we think of it like that, then it does make sense in that degree. But that aside, why is Natsu's appearance different? Why does he have constant flames? Why is his scarf on fire? Why is it most likely his strongest form yet, and why is he now Ignia's seemingly equal, or at least a threat to him? Well, that's because, again, True Fire Dragon King Natsu in Alvarez, when he used that flame, was strong enough to really damage Zeref, and after only a couple of blows, come close to being able to kill him, something that only someone with the Curse of Contradiction or potentially a deity could do. The dying flames of a Dragon King were capable of hurting and killing an immortal, and that was definitely one of the strongest flames Natsu had in that instance. That was probably the strongest state he was in outside of his END state, potentially, that he would have gotten. But Natsu had to spend an entire year getting that power to be as strong as it was, training with it, condensing it, getting it to be as strong as possible, and honing it for that fight against Zeref. And here, Natsu's body is different than what it was over a year ago. He's stronger, he's changed, he doesn't have the dragon seed, doesn't have the demon seed in him. That is a interesting difference when it comes to Natsu, as his body is technically different than it was when he had the power originally. But now that he ate it, since that is technically his magic and Ignio's magic, since there is a compatibility there, that power is added onto him, and thus giving him the extra boost that he has right now. He's stronger than he was in Alvarez, and his flames are different due to the nature of his fire and who he is now mentally. And so that original power amplified what he is right now, and so he's capable of utilizing these flames the way they are now. His scarf and constant flames on his arms and legs especially is a show of that, because in the final battle against Agnologia, Natsu's scarf, which remember is made of Ignio's scales, they began to toughen and harden in the final battle as a show of his dragon force, or at least the residual powers of the other dragon slayers, giving their powers to Natsu in that final fight, and Natsu's scarf is able to absorb magic power. We've seen this a couple of times, but the main thing obviously is when Zeref's curse tried to kill a bunch of people in the area, but Natsu's scarf was able to absorb that and save his life, taking that dark magic and kind of sealing it within itself in order to protect Natsu, basically taking the blow for him, and Wendy was able to purify it after that. So it would also make sense that if Natsu not only gained Ignio's flames back, but if they are stronger than ever, and he just got them all in one go, it makes sense that if he unleashed these flames, his scarf would respond to the familiar flames, thus igniting on fire. It being true Dragon King mode, as the flames are a part of the original Ignio, but also a part of Natsu, so you have that compatibility aspect. Plus, that's kind of how Dragon Slayers and Natsu, being the Fire Dragon Slayer, kind of deals with eating magic. When it comes to fire, Natsu gets that power, and it's added upon his own power, thus boosting him and replenishing his strength. But we've also seen him eat other sources, like Fox's lightning, as well as the Ether Nano in the atmosphere, or I guess Jalal's other golden flame during Arashi 6. All these instances, save for one, were a temporary power boost. Now, the Ether Nano was something that Natsu forced outside magic into himself that he couldn't handle, but it gave him a short-term power boost, but it did knock him out, even though it gave him Dragon Force for a temporary time. When it came to the Flames Rebuke that Jalal gave him in Arashi 6, it was kind of a mutual thing, but that power was temporary, unfortunately, at that point, which we could equate to Natsu being fully ready to have that type of flame. But then we get to the Hades fights on Tenro Island, where Loxus gave the last of his power, his lightning magic, to Natsu, allowing him to eat it. Based off of the fact that Natsu is capable of eating other elements, but it not being compatible most of the time, ends up knocking him out. But in that aspect, there was the compatibility and trust between Natsu and Loxus, which allowed him to access Lightning Fire Dragon mode, giving him a multitude of strength, multiplying his strength even greater than it was before, which is why it is his first real and permanent transformation and power boost that he accesses. He gains that Lightning Dragon power, which boosts his speed, strength, and just overall physical power output, especially with the Fire Dragon Roar. And that applies right now with True Fire Dragon King mode. Because everything is compatible, Natsu is able to keep that whole power boost now and allows him to amp himself even greater than it was before. But at the end of 198, his flames dissipated after only one massive blow against Beastia. Now, this comes to the confusion of people asking, wait, was that it? Was that it? Did he use that whole power up? Or is it a temporary boost? And that's why I'm saying that it is not only a permanent boost, but the reason he dissipated actually is actually a callback to his other power-ups that he got in a similar manner. Every aspect where Natsu ate a foreign flame or a foreign magic source like Aether Nano or Lox's flames, despite the differences in only one of those being a permanent power boost, Natsu was rendered unconscious, or basically that power left him due to a variety of factors. Obviously, Aether Nano and the Flame of Rebuke were different. Aether Nano was Natsu forcing down all that magic power at once and utilizing it in that fight, but afterwards, once he calmed down, that power left and he was unconscious, which is why the power is different, which is why I said there had to be a conscious give and take for the magic power, and it has to be compatible. Aether Nano was just pure magic power, but it wasn't fully compatible. Either way, we could also test that to him being a demon of E&D for his ethereal form, but that could be an entirely different speculative theory if you want to dive into that one. Don't really have anything for the Flame of Rebuke. Natsu was just fine afterwards anyway, but the Lightning Flame Dragon mode is the most obvious one. Natsu used it in this fight when he was exhausted, and once everything was said and done, Natsu was he basically keeled over and wasn't able to use it originally, and hadn't used it for a good chunk of time until right before Grand Magic Games to test out this power. But even after using that, he was knocked out because he had not really mastered or utilized that form in a manner that would benefit his body. And that's where I'm getting his flames dissipating in the chapter. He got that power up right now and used a full force strike to knock out Beastia, but because his body didn't accumulate to all that sudden power within him and he went all out like that, and it was already kind of a little bit exhausted to a degree, he did get knocked out because it was a clashing of powers that did not fully accumulate. And so now he's basically out of the action for a bit, so his body can further, well, get used to having that power back within him. Because this also ties to the 1 year training that Natsu did before Alvarez. It took him about a year to fully master Ignio's flames, and that was him beforehand. He's a lot stronger now. But he got that power back now, and these two conflicting things, while compatible, Natsu hasn't mastered this power, and this makes it more difficult for him to hold on to that in terms of output. Which is why I do think that while it is a permanent power boost, Natsu has to get used to that power being in his body again and having it being a part of him now, and since it seems to have been eaten by, he ate the flames, and by Fire Dragon logic and Dragon Slayer logic, that should be a strong enough and more permanent power boost to an extent when it's a flame that he is eating. It is something he has to get used to, similar to Lightning Flame Dragon mode, because that took a bit of time for him to actually master and utilize to its full potential. Now, while that is my rationality in terms of making this new form make sense, we're not going to see that for a while, because like Beastia said, Natsu now is a threat to Ignia, and with the power of the Fire Dragon King within Natsu, who is someone exponentially stronger than he was when he fought Zeref the first time, and especially in the final arc, these flames can really be a massive threat to Ignia, or at least get him to actually try. And even though that puts Natsu in a type of Fire Dragon King mode to fight against the Fire Dragon God, that could also be just one step further to Natsu's actual final form, essentially, for 100 Years Quest, Fire Dragon God mode. That would be really insane, because at the beginning of 100 Years Quest, Natsu ate Ignious Flames, but he didn't keep that power boost. It was kind of incompatible, and it was driving crazy because it was too high of a power output for him to contain. Ignio's flames are similar to his, and basically was his power originally, which is why it's going to stay within him. It's just going to take time for that power to accumulate and meld within him. Ignia's is separate, and it was too much of a power gap for Natsu to really contain, similar to the Aether Nano boost that he had in the Tower of Heaven. So now that Natsu is stronger, and once the flames of Ignio, his true Fire Dragon King flames and mode, are basically getting used to and close to, if not fully mastered by the time he fights Ignia, or maybe during that fight, Natsu will be able to eat Ignio's flames in the compatible different flames of father and son, and these two brothers, with Natsu being stronger now with this boost, will probably give Natsu an even greater power boost to really beat Ignia, giving him a type of Fire Dragon God mode, making him the highest order of dragon that we have seen in the series in terms of being a dragon slayer. But that's just my whole speculation on how that's going to end. It could just be Fire God Ignia fighting against Fire King Natsu. That would still be a really cool fight. But that's my whole rationale and explanation of Natsu's new Fire Dragon King mode, how he got it, why it's a thing that makes sense for him to keep that power up, and a little bit of speculation on how that could lead at least for him for a minute, on his true final form at the end of the series. Either way, this is probably not his strongest form yet. He regained the power that could kill an immortal like Zeref, but now he's stronger than he ever was before getting this extra power boost, and now he's even stronger to the point where he is Ignea's threat. So I'm curious to see where this is going to lead going into the future. Now, I'm curious to see if I am right on this being a permanent power boost based on what I've seen in the series so far, or will this be something that will leave him after his fight with Ignea? Who knows? I'm confident it'll be a permanent thing since it was his magic to begin with, and it is compatible with him. But you guys let me know your thoughts on this whole thing that we got in 100 Years Quest. Do you think it's permanent? Do you think it's temporary? Do you agree that everything that happened with Beastia, with how she got Ignea's flames just to give Natsu that power up, was just a nonsensical plot device and a waste of a character to a degree? Because it was disappointing to me. And do you like this new form that Natsu's getting? Do you like how it's technically designed? Are you happy that he got this really strong boost back again? Let me know in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps and shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. With all that said and done, hope you all have an awesome day.